Hey guys, what's up? We are back with another video today, and today we are doing our Utah 2023 football prediction. So make sure you hit that subscribe button down below as we reach towards our goal of 1,100 subscribers by the end of July. Also, make sure that you leave your comments down in the comments section. I am sure there are thoughts that you would like to leave. So make sure that you let me know what your thoughts are on Utah in this upcoming season as a possible contender for a playoff spot, for a conference championship spot, and dominance in the Pac-12, a conference that looks to be falling apart. What are your guys' thoughts as Pac-12 fans on the conference as a whole? Also, if you want to check out Patreon and help the channel financially, you can check that out. Link is in the description. And the website for the channel is also in the description. Finally, we have College Football Roundup, my channel, along with American Football Network, who have started a podcast channel. So that will have exclusive access to our podcast week by week, where we discuss our College Football Roundup podcast, hence the name. So let's make our way over to the schedule. So with Utah particularly here, they have an interesting schedule. You play Florida and Baylor to start off. Then you have Weber State, and then you get into a quite fearsome Pac-12 schedule. This year, more than other years, is really going to be a test of strength, both physically and mentally, because this is a conference that is going to be tough to win. The team that wins it, to be honest, is probably going to have at a minimum 2 losses, just for the simple sake of this is going to be a tough conference. Like I can't explain how hard of a conference I think this is going to be to win, even more so than the SEC, because Georgia is so dominant, and the SEC West, that is going to be a tough division to win. But the conference itself, I think Georgia is just going to win it. And I think that they're going to beat Georgia is going to be very difficult. But from top to bottom, week in and week out, I think this conference is just stacked and does not have a lot of terrible teams in it. Even a team like Colorado that Utah plays at the end of the season, they're a very top-heavy team talent-wise. You have a really good quarterback. Excuse me. You have Travis Hunter as your ultimate weapon, I guess. You have Alt McCaskill at running back. You have some other players, but overall, it's a very thin roster, but it is a talented one at certain points. Arizona State, they're going to be weak. California, you're going to be weak. But again, not all teams are great, but for the most part, it is definitely going to be an interesting environment. So let's start it off here. Florida. Home game. You had to go to the Swamp last year, and, well, it didn't go so well. You lost that game in a little bit of heartbreaking fashion, 29-26. Florida and Anthony Richardson really killed any hope of possibly making a playoff run, even though you technically did win the Pac-12 for the second straight year in the Pac-12 championship game. It's obviously a tough pill to swallow after losing games to Oregon and UCLA and Florida, which made it where you had those 3 losses where you weren't going to make it in. So you have Florida. Florida is a big opponent. I don't think that Florida is going to be able to – I think that they're a worse team than they were last year is basically what I'm trying to say. I think that they have a lot of struggles. I think that at quarterback you were definitely a lot worse than you were last year. You probably had one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC this year in Graham Mertz. He may be the worst, if not one of the worst, even with all the inexperience in the SEC. So I do think Utah wins that game. This is the much tougher of the 2 first matchups. This one's Baylor. It's at Baylor. It's in Waco. You do have a couple extra days with the Florida game being on a Friday or on a Thursday night, or I assume on a night. I don't honestly know, but I'm assuming so. But with Baylor, I think that when it comes down to it, I think Dave Aranda is a good coach. I think that this team is in a decent position. But at the end of the day, I do think that this is going to be a tough game for Utah. I think that it is going to be a game in which Utah is going to have to fight. And Blake Shapen, I think, is going to be better than he was last year. And I'll be honest, last year, Utah they got off to that Florida game, it worries me. It really worries me. Baylor last year went up and lost to BYU. I'm sorry, not beat, but lost to BYU. I think that they're going to have vengeance on their mind in some aspects. And I think that the Baylor offense is going to be decent. And I think that the Baylor defense is going to be more than up to the task to be able to slow down this Cam Rising-led offense that brings back quite a few pieces. But at the same time, you do lose Tavon Thompson and Tavon Thomas and Dalton Kincaid. So I just think that with those losses, it makes it a little bit more difficult earlier on in the season on a road matchup. I just trust Baylor's weapons a little bit more than I do Utah's. Yeah, Weber State shouldn't have any issues there. I think Weber State is an easy opponent, not as easy as like Southern Utah or something like you played last year, but you should have no issues there. Then you have UCLA. Last year you lost to UCLA. I don't think that you lose twice in a row. I think that UCLA is a solid team this year, but I think they're going to probably be on the bottom half of the Pac-12 with a divisionless Pac-12, mind you. You're divisionless. Because you're going to start a freshman most likely. It's week 4 of the season. Dante Moore is a good quarterback, but he's a freshman. Even though I think that freshmen have been better now than they were in the past, obviously they're a lot more prepared for the college game, and even some of the Texas high school leagues are better than, obviously, I think some of them are better than Division III, even some Division II teams and even some FCS leagues, Texas or Florida, or even some areas in California. Not exactly Michigan. Michigan has some solid programs, but not exactly the same as Dante Moore did come from Martin Luther King Jr. High School, which is in a area near Detroit. So I think that UCLA plays well in this game, but I don't think that they win the game. Then you have a road game against Oregon State, and it was really hard not to give Oregon State the win here, I'll be honest. But with how Oregon State played last year, getting the crap beat out of them 42-16, I think that Utah is going to win this game. I think physically they're just more dominant. I think that's the big difference between them and a lot of Pac-12 teams is they're just physically dominant. They are one of the most physical and strong and dynamic big Pac-12 teams in the country or in the conference, and I just don't think that anybody can match the physicality, and that's the main reason for giving a win to Utah over Oregon State, even though I like Oregon State a lot. Then you have a bye week, and Cal's going to have a lot of trouble in this game. I think that Cal, their big thing last year in some scenarios was running the ball. They did have a decent passing attack with Jack Plummer, but they have a new quarterback because Plummer transferred to Louisville to go be with his old head coach and Jeff Brom. It's going to be a crap show. It's going to be terrible. Cal is going to lose this game and lose it bad. Just don't see a route for Cal winning this game. Then you have a road game against UCLA. I think that this game goes in the Trojans' favor. Last year, you beat the Trojans twice. I just don't see it being 3 straight times. I do see the physicality that Utah brings that nobody else does bring to the table. But with this game being in the Coliseum and not being in the home grounds of Utah, and I know that the Pac-12 title game was in Las Vegas last year, I believe, so it wasn't a home game, but I do think Utah is going to lose this game. I think that Caleb Williams is just such a good quarterback that he's not going to lose this game 3 times in the past 2 years, even though, let's be honest, it is very likely that that is a Pac-12 championship matchup. So there you go. Then you have Oregon. I think you get the win there. I think you beat Oregon. I think that with Oregon, Bo Nix, all of them, well, let's just say they're not as bad as they were under Mario Cristobal, I think, in the lines. I think that they have some players that are better, but let's just be honest. Other than last year when I was shocked that Utah lost to Oregon, but the previous year, Utah beat the living crap out of Oregon twice, 38-7 and 38-10. I just think that the Ducks, once again, lose to Utah. Even though last year you did win, I think that game being in Eugene, it made it a little bit more difficult. This time, it's going to be a win for the Utes. Then you have Arizona State. Arizona State, probably the worst team in the Pac-12, in my opinion. I think that you're looking at a really bad Pac-12 team here in Arizona State. You have Drew Pine as your quarterback, and as a Notre Dame fan, Drew Pine is not a starting level college football Power 5 quarterback. He does not have the arm strength. He can barely make it throw the ball farther than I can. And let's just say I'm not terrible, but I'm not very good. I could probably throw the ball good 30 yards. Drew Pine can maybe throw it 40 on a good day with a little bit of wind. So it's a tough balance there for the Sun Devils in their first year under Kenny Dillingham. Or not Dillingham. Wow, that was wait, 1 second here. Yeah, it's Dillingham. Yeah, I had it right. I'm sorry. I was mixing it up with Kyle Whittingham. I'm sorry. Then you have Washington. This is where it comes down to. This is where the rubber hits the road. You can lose to USC. You can lose to Washington. You can lose to Oregon. But you cannot lose to 2 out of the 3. You have to beat 2 out of the 3 if you want to make the Pac-12 championship. So I think that you win it. Utah has dominated this conference the past couple of years. In 2020, it was a struggle going 3-2. Obviously, there were some issues. It was COVID. I'm going to exclude that season. But outside of that, Utah has been to 4 out of the last 5 Pac-12 championship games, has won the last 2. They lost the 2 in 2018 and 2019. But this is an Utah team that is starting to dominate the Pac-12. And I think that they found the formula. I think they're going to continue to do so despite the best efforts of Michael Penix at Washington. Then you have a road game against Arizona. This is a trap game to the 10th degree. It is such a trap game. You just came off of a big win. I'm assuming Washington may even be a top 15 team by this point. And if everything goes according to plan, I'm assuming Utah would also be a top 15 team at this point. So coming off a probable big win, you have Arizona. Arizona is a sneaky good team with Jaden DeLora and the wide receiver core that he has at Oregon under Jed Fish. I think that you're looking at a solid team. Defensively, they're trash. They're awful. But offensively, they have a lot of firepower. But I think that defensively, Utah may let them hang around for a half, maybe even 2.5 quarters. But I think that Utah's physical dominance will end up winning the day. I do think that he gets a win there. Finally, I think that you beat Utah. I think Utah goes beat Colorado. Sorry. I think Utah goes 10-2. I think that they do win out this season and play well. I think that they do play for another Pac-12 championship. I think a lot's riding on the line this season as you look at a big upcoming schedule for this team. And with losing USC and UCLA, 2 of the big name brands, football-wise, Utah's looking in a very good position to start dominating this conference on a year-in and year-out basis. If you can't already say they already do dominate the conference to a degree. So that's going to wrap up today's video. Hit the 2 videos down below. Right over here will be the podcast playlist of all of my college football prediction videos, and over here will be a viewer best video selected by YouTube of my videos. Hit the subscribe button up here to help the channel grow. And as always, have a great day. Bye, guys.